I don't like when American presidents pit U.S. companies against people. I know what the president's trying to get at, but we need a fair tax system. But pharma was good to us during COVID. Big oil is important to us as we now find ourselves at a war, in a war in Ukraine. So I think that us versus them thing is not necessarily the thing to do, but we need a fair tax code. Even you and I started talking about how we could agree on the Medicaid expansion by making work requirements.
Pharma was good to us during COVID? I'm gonna debunk that with actual facts in a minute. Before I do, who was that guy? Well, it's former Democratic Representative Harold Ford telling Americans that corporations are freaking awesome and that Joe Biden pitting Americans against big business is very, very naughty, so bad. So that was his response to Biden's State of the Union address last night. And the lies told are pretty incredible. Now, I should also note, Harold Ford, who's no longer in Congress, he served up until 2007, now has his own lobbying group of some sort. So he is a lobbyist himself. He loves government corruption. So when we talk about big business corrupting politicians, he finds that to be fine and dandy because he's a beneficiary of that. He loves it. Okay. He also provides cover for the bad behavior of pharmaceutical companies and big oil because they're likely his clients. But let's actually debunk what he said there, okay? He mentioned how pharma's been good to us during COVID. No, pharma was able to collect quite a bit of taxpayer money in what was referred to as Trump's Operation Warp Speed. So that was public money that was funneled to private pharmaceutical companies to speed up the development and the manufacturing of the vaccine. They didn't do it out of nowhere. In fact, when it comes to research and development, the National Institutes of Health happen to provide quite a bit of money, $30 billion a year to pharmaceutical companies so they can actually, do the research and development for new drugs. I mean, because God forbid they take the risk with their capital when it comes to the research and development. The US taxpayer has to pay $30 billion for research and development so we can later be price gouged by the same pharmaceutical companies. But Harold Ford tells you should like that. You should sit down and take it. I mean, it is pathetic. This is a Democrat. That's a Democrat, okay? I mean, it's remarkable. Now, what set him off? Why don't we go back to Joe Biden's State of the Union address just last night.
And we pay for these investments in our future by finally making the wealthiest and biggest corporations begin to pay their fair share. I'm a capitalist, but pay your fair share. I think a lot of you at home agree with me and many people that you know. The tax system is not fair. It is not fair. The idea that in 2020, 55 of the largest corporations in America, the Fortune 500, made $40 billion in profits and paid zero in federal taxes? Zero? Folks, it's simply not fair. Corporations ought to do the right thing. That's why I propose we quadruple the tax on corporate stock buybacks and encourage long-term investments.
That is what set off Harold Ford. Oh, God forbid, businesses pay their fair share in taxes. Now, remember, the corporate tax rate prior to Trump cutting it was 35%. When you consider all the corporate tax loopholes that went into effect, all the possible deductions that corporations could take advantage of, the effective tax rate for corporations was actually closer to 17% on average. And the Biden administration claimed that they were gonna reverse the Trump era tax cuts, but he didn't want the corporate tax rate to go up to 35%. He proposed that the corporate tax rate go up from 21%, which is what Trump did, to 28%, not 35%. So like the idea that Biden is some fire breather, some socialist fire breather, he's so tough on corporations, is laughable to say the least. He didn't even fight for that provision. At the end of the day, that provision failed. It was scrapped from any legislation, and really, the corporate tax rate never went up to 28%. Okay, so the effective 21%, not effective, but the 21% corporate tax rate that was accomplished by Donald Trump remains, along with all the corporate deductions and loopholes that they can take advantage of. So their effective tax rate is even lower than that. That's what the reality of the situation is. But just based on the rhetoric we heard from Biden, Harold Ford got real salty, very upset. Why could that be? Why don't we take a look at what his political career looked like, including his fundraising efforts. He raised quite a bit of money. So he raised around $1 million in every election cycle except for 2006. So in 2006, for some reason, all of a sudden he saw this massive jump in contributions to his campaign. Now, he served until 2007, so I'm happy to say that that money apparently didn't work. But nonetheless, $14 million he had contributed to his campaign in 2006. Why don't we look at the top industries? Securities and investment. It's right at the top of the list, which is relevant because when Biden talks about corporations paying their fair share in taxes, what does that often lead to? Well, paying more in taxes means the federal government is gonna cut into your profits. Profits mean that the shareholders might not collect as much in, increase in share prices or through dividends. And so he's still working for the same people who funded his campaign. He's still looking out for them. God forbid they pay anywhere near percentage-wise what we pay in our taxes. That might eat away at their profits. That might have a negative effect on these poor shareholders. What are we gonna do? It's incredibly gross that we keep hearing the same ridiculous commentary coming from people, politicians, former politicians, who pretend to be on the side of ordinary Americans. By the way, let's go back to the point that he made about oil, which was also equally ridiculous. So oil companies are doing real well this year. Why don't we look at their profits? I should say last year. 2022, their profits were pretty gigantic. BP, for instance, $28 billion. This is not revenue, folks. This is profits. BP made $28 billion in profits in 2022. Chevron, $35.5 billion. Shell, $40 billion. ExxonMobil, $56 billion. You wanna know why? They took advantage of the Russian invasion into Ukraine to price gouge the hell out of us. They price gouged us like crazy. And what are they gonna do now? Well, they're going to further enrich themselves with, you guessed it, corporate stock buybacks. Let's talk about that. So BP plans on spending $2.75 billion on corporate stock buybacks. Shell, $4 billion. ExxonMobil, $35 billion. Oh man, ExxonMobil shareholders must be salivating over that number. Chevron, $75 billion. This is how the system works. And you have a former Democratic lawmaker not only loving the system, but going out of his way to go on Fox News to protect that system and speak out against Biden's rhetorical, like just his rhetoric, really. It's so offensive to hear Biden just posture about something that he's not gonna do or accomplish, that he has to go on Fox News and speak out against him. I get it, man, it's tough. It's tough to earn an honest living in this country and survive, be able to pay your rent, be able to pay your mortgage, your car payment, whatever it is. But I could never be a bitch for corporations the way some of these corporate Democrats are. Just couldn't sleep at night. Something tells me that Ford has no problem though.